All right, welcome to this early morning if you're on the Pacific Coast presentation. Today, we are going to finally get you ready to launch your coaching program quickly and legally, just in time for Black Friday, if that's what you choose to do. And I promise you, you will leave here today with somewhat of a to-do list, especially if you don't have your program content created. But it's very manageable to do that in the next 4 to 5 weeks or so. I'm Valerie Del Grosso. I have been the lawyer friend of coaches since 2015, and I'm super excited to show you today on this presentation the things that I have seen after going behind the scenes in many successful coaching programs over the years as the lawyer friend. We're going to bring those steps to the table that the most successful coaches have in common. These are the steps that I've taken in my own business to sell. And I think today's presentation you'll find is different than maybe what you're expecting because we're going to go in order through steps that I think not too many people are explicitly talking about. So I hope you find this very helpful and something that you return to again and again in this process whenever you're getting ready to sell your next coaching program. You are in the right place if you know that you want to do business legally, not necessarily always sure what that looks like in practice, and you also want to be ready to launch. I have given now a presentation to about 750 coaches, and I have an exit survey, and so many of them say, "This is amazing, but I'm not ready to sell." And I thought it's time to help people beyond that because the reasons that they may not be selling are things that are probably not insurmountable. And so we're going to overcome those today. This is not theory. This isn't like, you have to buy something to make sure this works. I will have an offer at the end for you if you do desire to go further with me, but you will have everything that you need today in the exact process that I use. And so, as always, I ask that you really give yourself this time. Everyone can wait 90 minutes, and this will be an asset you create that can pay dividends into the future. Very quickly, I'm going to walk you through a 7-step repeatable sales process. And if 7 sounds high, I don't want you to worry because number 7 is actually the delivery. So that one is not going to be a surprise. Next, we'll go back through those steps and list your legal requirements. And then finally, we're going to put it all together. I'll show you ways that you can expedite creating this process so that you can be out in the world promoting, making those sales, and getting people ready to join your program. The elephant in the room today is that I suspect there are a lot of you who feel that everything has to be perfect before you get it out of the door. Also, I'm going to ask you to make decisions today. These are not governed by some kind of decision police. You can always go back and change them, but I am going to ask you to make certain quick decisions on the spot so that we can get through the steps and move to the next one because a lot of them will depend on the step that came before. If you're feeling uncomfortable or uncertain about making these decisions, simply make note of that. That's identifying an area for further exploration without any kind of judgment. I may ask you to do things that you feel like doesn't fit your niche or your audience, and that's okay too. But I think the vast majority of you are going to find value in going through this decision-making process. So I am here to tell you, I hope I'm not the first one, that you are already perfect, but your business doesn't have to be. I want you to get in the game. And before we do that, I want to tell you 2 quick things. The first is that years ago, probably 5 or 6 years ago now, I was promoting a product to other lawyers. And lawyers can be very hoity-toity. I'm sure you're familiar with this. And on one of my ads, I was discussing the results that I had had by reorganizing my practice around client needs, specifically focusing on coaches. And I had a woman who was a Georgetown law grad working at a very fancy law firm who was hating on me in the comments of the ad, trying to say, "You have broken links on your website. There's no way that these numbers are real. You're just showing screenshots, yada, yada, yada." And I thought to myself, lady, you are living in a punishing perfectionist world. The internet is still so new in the scope of things that, yes, even broken links and ugly branding that I had at the time sells. Don't take those things personally. We know those people are out there, and I am proof positive that you don't have to have everything beautiful and amazing to make your first $1 million, which was true for me. So I encourage you today, you're in a safe place with people who believe in you and understand that the rest of the world is in a completely different mentality. Today, you have permission to get in the game, and I'm so excited to lead you through that. The other thing I'll tell you is that I learned from Brooke Castillo of the Life Coach School that confusion is one of our most indulgent emotions. It doesn't mean it's real, but today let's be that decisive person and make the decisions that I'm going to ask you to make. We're not going to worry too much about tech, although I will have some low tech, mid tech, and high tech options for you. And I see at least one techie person in the audience, Sharon Booker. So if anyone is thinking about struggling or letting themselves be defeated by the tech please reach out to Sharon, who didn't know in advance that I was going to be putting her on the spot. So Sharon, I'll let you yell at me about that later. All right, notebooks and pens ready because we're going to dive right into outlining the offer. In online business, as well as offline business, really, there are two things you need to know. You have to have an offer, which is something to sell and which is something different than just your skill. I'm a lawyer, but I don't sell lawyering skills. I sell flat fee packages to coaches that help them launch. Identify that for yourself. Yes, you have a coaching skill, but your offer is what? That's what we're going to figure out on the next slides here. What's included, we will also address that. The other piece is going to be the traffic, getting interested people to see this offer so that they can buy it. When you can nail the concept of traffic to offers, your results are unlimited. And so we're going to do half of that heavy lifting today in the next hour or so together. I go about outlining offers differently than you may have done in the past. And partially, this is a matter of being practical and being able to deliver and get something out the door. The other part of this is that we're going to focus your Black Friday launch on something that is based on what you can get out the door by then that will actually solve a problem for your client as well as hit your own goal. And whether I'm, let's say, quote unquote, in a rush to launch or not, this decision-making process is something that I always do turn to. So in outlining the offer, we're going to look at what your goal is first, because this is going to solve for some variables about what you could include. Many of us have been through many programs. We've been scrolling on that damn internet, so we've seen all the varieties of things that people offer. We're going to tune all of that out and we're going to make decisions that fit your goal, your client's goal, and that reveal the details of your offer to you. So let's get started with your goal. I hesitated about doing this up front because I know people are funny about money or they're funny about, putting that stretch goal out into the world. And I'm just going to tell you, we don't have time for that today. So, my question to you is, would it feel good to make $2,000 on Black Friday? Would it feel good to make $10,000 on Black Friday? This question is not rocket science, but again, you can make that note to yourself if you have stuff coming up about this. So I'll give you just a second to get that first number that comes out and put that on paper. My next question to you is, realistically, how much do you want to work to deliver this program on Black Friday? And I'll walk you through my own example so you can see this in a second. But for me, the line between less work and more work is whether I'm going to be working one-on-one with a client, or less work would be I'm going to have some sort of group experience where I can help a lot of people in a little bit of my time, or even less where it's a self-study item for my students. So for my own self, I would love to make around $10,000. And I don't want to work a lot, but I do want people to feel comfortable that they have some access to me. So I'm looking at either some sort of group experience or an asynchronous access to me, which means something like Telegram or Voxer or an email where they can reach out to me as needed, but there's not an expectation that they're going to get on the phone with me at a scheduled time. For those of you who are coaches, though, you may think, I'm not really ready for a group experience for reasons we'll get into, but my type of work does require some one-on-one, whether that's for support for the type of transformation your client's seeking, or because of the price point we're going to request, or just a timing issue of that's what it's going to take to be able to launch by Black Friday. So the third aspect of this is how big of an audience do you have? Because remember, we're not just creating the offer, we also have to present it out to the world. Now, I have a medium to large audience, which means it's going to be easier for me to make more sales. So, more sales means I can adjust the price point downward a little bit. It means that I don't have to be expected to be on one-on-one calls due to that price point, which means generally I'm going to do a little less work than those of you who are going to deliver a one-on-one program. But as you can see on the screen, that still is going to translate to a lot of money. And that number I know is relative to people, but I'm talking like 5 to 10K in a weekend is a lot of money. So if you're a person who has a small audience and you're willing to do more work, you're probably going to price your offer about $2,000. If you have a small audience and you want to do less work, you're probably going to be in the area of about $1,000. And you can walk through this with the numbers I've put on the screen as far as also if you have a big audience. Now, this is not set in stone. These are just numbers to help us solve initially for a variable. I'm going to sell a $600 program. I want to sell about 18 or 20 of these to make my big number. Group program, not a ton of access to me, just some access to me, talking to a mid-sized to big audience. So do that little equation for yourself, and I'm happy to answer questions about that more when we get to the Q&A. All right, so moving on, we looked at your goal. Now let's look at your client's goal and see how they intersect. As a coach, you probably understand what big outcome you can help clients reach, whether that is a mindset issue or some sort of business outcome, a wealth outcome, whatever that might be. But I'm sure, especially if you've worked with other clients, that there are smaller outcomes that are also important to them and that they may experience on their way to the bigger outcome on that journey. With big outcomes, we can typically charge bigger prices, and with smaller outcomes, often smaller pricing. So remember, this is just some rules of thumb, some kind of back of the napkin math that we're doing right now. This is not the be all end all on pricing. And I'm sure for those of you who are business coaches in here, you're like, what is she talking about? But if you look at this idea of big outcome and small outcome versus the amount of work and the price you want to charge, you can see probably whether you're going to be offering your main package or something smaller in a short turnaround time like Black Friday. So if you are going to offer the big outcome for that higher price point, you're also probably going to have to include more support. So if you're a person who said, I don't really have the time this November, December to deliver after Black Friday, you're probably not going to choose the big outcome as the goal you're going to help a client reach. You might choose that smaller outcome that justifies a little less support, a little lower price point. So make a note for yourself. What is your big outcome and what is a potentially smaller outcome? And on the next slide, I'll walk you through this thought process. For me, I have the big outcome of helping my coaches build a sustainable coaching practice that relies on team and a unique proprietary methodology to build a business that lives on without them. That's a big outcome because we're touching on everything from legal requirements to financial arrangements to estate planning. This is something I'm very capable of helping clients do for that bigger outcome. But There are people who don't need that right now. Instead, they need to be ready to sign their first or next coaching client. They want to be client ready, which is a very different place than wanting to make sure that their grandchildren can inherit their methodology. So, this smaller outcome isn't less valuable. It isn't to diminish the people who need that component. It just reflects the reality that there is a different goal for some people that doesn't require a ton of my help. And it just so happens that these people are typically newer in business, have a more limited budget, but I can still help them get this, what I'm calling a smaller outcome, by being ready to sign clients legally. So, taking into account the offer, my goals, my clients' needs, and looking at a Black Friday launch date, I decided with my mid-size audience, I want to make about $10,000 solving a medium problem with low to mid access to me. Can you create a similar sentence for yourself? With the result being, I'm going to sell a $595 product. It's going to help coaches launch their one on one or group coaching offer legally. It's a self-paced program that has asynchronous access to me, so they're not totally going it alone. And my goal is to sell 17 of these packages. Now, by contrast, if I was going to help them solve every legal problem that they have, I would know that they need a lot more access to me and they would need a lot more materials in the program. And so I would be selling them my big program, which is a $1,297 plus item. That's the bigger outcome that requires more work on my part. But I've decided for this purpose, that's not really what I want to offer for Black Friday. That doesn't mean I won't build an audience who eventually is interested in that. It doesn't mean this is the only thing forever and ever I have to sell. I'm allowing myself to make this decision, to put one foot in front of the other to see what's revealed as I work on this and make these decisions so that I can address those mindset issues on my part. I can get a realistic sense of how much time I'm going to have to put on my calendar to prepare and deliver for something like this. And I'm going to know that I'm doing this for the specific purpose of kind of flexing my muscles, doing the repetitions, and hopefully having some kind of financial reward at the end. So we looked at your goal, we looked at your client's goals, and we're now about to look at what to include. This is where I think this presentation is going to depart from what you have seen before. There are seemingly an endless number of things that you can include in your program. But after years of looking at coaching programs and participating in them and thinking deeply about this, it turns out there are actually only 4 things that you can include. And that is a small number. You don't have to include them all. And for reasons you'll see in a second, I'm sure you won't include them all. But this can really help eliminate the noise around what you have to include because, let's say, other people are including it, or clients will expect it, or all these other reasons aside from the goals we just talked about and what your client actually needs to get either the smaller or the bigger outcome that you're promising. Imagine that, lining up what they get with what they need. Now, this turns kind of normal industry speak on its head because everyone is like, throw in the kitchen sink. They'll feel like it's such a no-brainer value. But in fact, this really can detract from results because clients have to then get into your program and figure out what the heck is in there and where to start and what they need. I encourage you instead to focus on what you, as the expert, know they need to get the result. And we'll focus in your copy on making sure that the value of that comes through without having to, throw in all the bargains. So I'll give you a second. These are the only 4 things that a coaching program includes. We're going to revisit this slide a little later because I will also talk to you about how this relates to what your legal requirements are. So I call this the CAGE, content, access, group dynamics, and experience. So you can always commit this to memory, the legal CAGE, so that you can start to intuitively understand what your legal requirements might be when you take a business step like launching a new program. So I'll touch on that again, but for right now, I want you to focus on the bottom one first, actually. with the program that you may be loosely sketching in your notes right now, are you going to include a live experience? That's what the E is. Most of you are probably not going to include a live experience right now. And that is totally fine. On the other hand, maybe some of you are saying, I have an amazing VIP day that I love to offer an in-person retreat in this beautiful place that I live. And so that's what I'm going to sell. Perfect, if that is something that you have the infrastructure for. Some of you may be thinking, I want to offer that smaller outcome. I'm going to want to do a little less work over the holidays, so I'm going to do this in a group environment so that I don't have to be on for a bunch of people. So, is yours going to have a group component, which typically looks like a Facebook group or a Slack channel where your clients congregate, as well as a Zoom room or wherever you would do any kind of teaching and or live calls with your group? The next one is access to you. Access refers to one-on-one access to you. Is your client going to receive one-on-one access to you, usually in the form of scheduled calls? But again, there's that asynchronous option where they get the privacy of one-on-one without you having to actually book calls on your calendar. As a little aside, recently I have done some Voxer coaching with an amazing coach, and I pay her a monthly fee, and she's just in my back pocket whenever I need. And it's been amazing because it takes that pressure off, even me as the client, having the call on the calendar and needing to be ready and show up and all of that. So I encourage you, if that's new to you, to consider potentially doing that as a really great value add that doesn't add a lot of work to your plate. And then finally, will there be any written content? So this might be actually pre-recorded videos, worksheets, things like that, actual kind of what we would consider teaching material. And when you look at this, you can pretty quickly see that you may A, have a to-do list because you've got a few things that you have to create. B, that maybe you've never considered what is actually required to get your client results. And see that this doesn't have to be a huge, crazy decision because there are really only 4 categories of things that you can include. So I'll give you a moment there to make that note. And then we'll head into the next part, which is the 7-step sales process to selling effectively and legally. All right, I hope you are feeling positive, at least about how to make the decision about your offer. You may already have an offer that you're pulling off the shelf, and so this is old hat for you. And you may consider that on Black Friday, you'll offer some sort of special bonus or special pricing to kind of reflect the ethos of the holiday, the shopping holiday, I should say. All right. On the page in front of you is my beautiful website that I expended blood, sweat, and tears through failed rebrands and all the things to get. I love it. I'm so happy it's out there, but beautiful websites, even ugly websites, are not actually part of the selling process. Websites are a place that you can send people to nurture them after they have seen you. But to sell on Black Friday or sell at all, you do not need to have a website. So if you're a person who's thinking, I'm not going to be ready in time because I don't have a website, you can cross that right off the list. Very quickly to drive home this point, in 10 plus years, I think I can attribute less than 20 sales to my website. Instead, my sales have come from a highly strategic selling process that you're going to see on the pages which follow. So you have my permission to let go of the website. Instead, we have to take into account the reality of how people actually shop. And I want to say, humans have been selling things to each other for way longer than the internet has existed. And we as consumers, most of us, are still going into physical establishments to buy things. And you know, as a buyer, that when you drive by Target, you may or may not go in. But Target has done the work of implanting itself in your brain to remember it exists. For most of us who are doing business on the internet, we don't have that kind of brand cachet yet. So we have to be out in the world reminding people that we exist. And just like when we go into Target with our shopping list It has happened, believe it or not. I have walked out of Target not buying anything. So sometimes people go in the store and don't buy, and that's okay. And we, I'm sure, have experienced going into Target with the list of things that we think we want and coming out with what Target knew we needed, which was cute holiday decor and slippers and things that were not on the list. Okay. So these are all buying psychology and behaviors that we know about our own selves that do also translate online. The first step in acknowledging the fact that people are not necessarily aware of what you do and they're not necessarily ready to get their credit card out and that they're not even necessarily sure what they need right at this moment is to invite them into your world in a way that where you give them value, where you remind them that you exist, and where you can make them be ready to buy from you. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that in a minute. So, the first step in the sales system is getting them to subscribe on an opt in page. And so, you are seeing my opt in page on the screen right now. One of the big objections that I have found my clients have is they don't know what to do, they don't know when they're going to do it, and it keeps falling to the bottom of their to do list. So I created an entry into my world that says, hey, I have figured all of that out for you. So just come here, come into my world, step into my office. We're going to get you legal quickly. Okay. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to find a bunch of time for it. I have solved that for you. So, my question for you is, do you have a natural entry point that is also helpful for getting someone to take a step towards you? Because in Legal in a Weekend, I help people figure out what they need to do before they have clients from a legal standpoint. When they work with me, I'm going to transition over to what they need to get and keep clients. It's a natural continuum. So you can think about the type of coach that you are. If you help people deal with, let's say, food allergies, maybe you have them step into your world by saying, I have this guide to unusual symptoms that you might be experiencing and not attributing to food allergies. Great. They come in. Yeah, I feel like crap. My doctor can't tell me why. Perhaps it's a food allergy. They get in. You do whatever that initial step is to help them identify that they are essentially your perfect client. And then you can invite them into your paid program. This is how to work around it. This is how to deal with the fact that other people in your house don't have allergies, what have you. I have no concept of this topic, but you can see my point is that people go on a journey of awareness. So if you do not already have a free gift that you can offer in exchange for an email address, while people get to know you, make their shopping list, and decide to go with you, put this on your to-do list. What is something that you can offer that's valuable that helps them get in your direction? Now, of course, once they sign up, you want to confirm and you want to give them some instructions for what to do next. This is actually a confirmation page for something different, but you can see here I'm making really good use of my real estate. I want them to go check their inbox for what I sent them. I want them to put something on their calendar. I want them to invite someone else, and I want them to come and be my friend on Instagram. This is high value real estate. This is the thank you page. They are excited and they are waiting to hear from you about the next step. Don't make them figure it out. Make it super easy. All right. Step 3 is we want to keep in touch with them. I like to do this through a 5 email sequence, and I'm going to show you where you can get the exact copy for that if you hate to write and don't know what to say. But this basically invites them to know who you are, how you can help, the ways that you do things differently than the industry, and what they can expect from you next. Very inviting. These get really high open rates. So step 3, your welcome emails. Step 4, now it is time to invite them to take the next step with you and purchase. So I like to do this in the course of 5 sales emails that introduce the program, that talk to them about the possibilities when they go through your process and what life would be like. I like to talk about how we do that. And then I like to let them know if there's a special offer, a special bonus, special pricing. So that's going to be incredibly important for your Black Friday offer. Then we have to actually invite them to the sales page. So you're seeing the program that I'm talking to you about. This is the sales page. And just like we would buy something on, let's say, Amazon, we list out the features and the benefits, and we have the reviews if there are any, and all of the things that a person would realistically need to make a purchasing decision. There are a deceptively high number of legal requirements for this page that the industry is modeling wrong. So stay tuned because we're going to make sure that yours is just right. If you need a sales page or really any of these steps, I encourage you to use your masterclass action guide to make a note or put a note in your personal notebook. Then we're going to take them to a checkout page. This is an encrypted page that protects their financial information, has them agree to the terms of purchase, and will ultimately take them to the thank you page. On the thank you page, I like to again invite them into my world. This is a high value piece of real estate, as well as provide them with some support information in case the tech doesn't do what it's supposed to. And then finally, they're going to come into the program site where I deliver what was promised to make it super easy for them to access everything. So as you can see, there are a number of steps, but we're going to go through them methodically. You can see them all on the page there. We're going to go through them methodically so you'll have time to think through what you need to do and what you might want to offer in conjunction with your legal requirements and your copy. So let's get there. All right. The opt-in page, we're giving them that free gift in exchange for an email so that we can keep in touch with them. For this, your legal requirement is a privacy policy. Don't do it now, but if you go to my website, you will find the Legal in a Weekend, which does include a privacy policy template from me. So that is a free gift. Everybody has to have it. It's one of those things that you set it, you forget it, and you put a link to it in the footer of any page where you are collecting emails, other contact information, or financial information. So mark that down. You need a privacy policy, and where are you going to get it? From Legal in a Weekend, which you will do after we finish this. All right, next up, the confirmation page. This is exciting. The gift is on its way. I hope it goes without saying, but you do have to actually deliver it. And I think it's a best practice to include some sort of support email. So make a note. What email are you going to use for support? Word to the wise, don't make it your regular business email. Make it some kind of alias like support at or whatever. There's technically not any legal requirement for your confirmation page, which is great news, but this is a good time for us to take a pause and check that the program names that you're going to use either in your free gift, like mine is called Legal in a Weekend, or in your program, like mine is called Client Ready, are actually available. And what I mean by that is no one else in your industry is using the same or similar name. Now, I know there's some authors on here, so I want to say actually book titles are not protected. But from a marketing standpoint, we don't want to use the same names that other people are using. And that's true for coaches and everyone else as well. So we want to go to the USPTO website, check for the name and variations, spellings, plurals, that kind of thing. Go out to Google, do some research to see who else is using it. There's no good faith excuse, and this is actually like a really messy, high risk area for coaches. The law presumes you went out and did your homework. So if you're using a name that someone else is already using the same or similar, such that consumers could potentially be confused, you're at fault, and that can carry some penalties and things. So great time to take the pause and do that. So make a note to yourself that you've done that checking. And it's great because who wants to invest in a brand that they cannot actually protect? All right. We're going to combine the email sequences. So again, these are your welcome to my world and my here's what I have available for you sequences that direct to the sales page ultimately. I am still seeing in the year of our Lord 2025 people doing this wrong, which is amazing because we have so many incredible one-stop shop software that handles this. So the first one is you have to make it super easy for people to unsubscribe. This is why we use email software instead of just sending bulk emails out of our Gmail account. Okay, this is This is a business requirement, not just a matter of a place that we can cut an expense by, trying to send from Gmail directly or whatever process you use. One click unsubscribe in the footer. Be sure that this isn't just taking them off part of your list or out of a certain promotion, but in fact off your entire list. And you do have to include a real and complete address in the footer of your emails. That is the law. So I just dealt with someone who said, I'm coming at you from sunny Seattle, which is already not true and is not a complete address. So it is a very low cost item to go through the US Postal Service or a local mail shop where they will let you use the street address and your box number as the suite number so that you have a real physical address in the footer of your emails. These are not nice to haves. These are essentially these kind of legal gotchas that can get you in a heap of trouble because hopefully you're sending these emails out to thousands of people. And when you do that, there's always one who wants to report you. So please be sure that you have an email software and that you go and do this little housekeeping item on it. Next, okay, your sales page. This I mentioned is a really important area that also is not being modeled well in the industry. I want to, this could be a topic unto itself. So I had to decide what our most highest risk items are, I should say. So, first of all, anything that you're putting on a sales page or anywhere where you are putting information that your customers could potentially use to make a buying decision, it has to be truthful, accurate, and the kicker is not misleading. So, if you're looking at your sales page and there are things on there that you're saying, well, technically that's true, that is a no-no. That is a no-no. From a practical standpoint, which we talk about a lot, we want to make it easy for the right people to come into our world, and leaving things out to get the sale or framing things in a way that really is not giving the whole picture is not the way to do that. So, the reason that it's very easy for even well meaning people to do this is a lot of us are using scripts or templates, and that is just baked in. In 2024, the Federal Trade Commission came down hard on some people who were doing this, and it did make somewhat of a wave, but not a whole lot. I'm going to give you a very specific example, and then we'll go through the rest of the items to look through here. ClickFunnels just did a huge splashy launch of a new program called OfferLab, which allows you to create funnels using other people's products and make an affiliate commission. What Russell Brunson doesn't realize is the actual gold he's sitting on is the ability to upload sales copy and have AI build it on a beautiful page. This is a miracle of modern technology. However, when I played with this, the software did two things. It added a bunch of fake values for my bonuses and a bunch of fake testimonials because I did not upload that information, so it created its own. My point is not to say that you're going to just completely make them up. My point is to say this is super ubiquitous in our industry and we have to stop it because it is illegal. When you're listing bonuses, a lot of times people will say, this is worth $1,000 and that's worth $1,500. And when you add up the whole program, it's $1 million program that I'm going to sell you today for $497. It feels hokey to us, especially those of us who've been in the industry for a while, but that is still being taught. I was in another program recently where she said, come up with figures that equal 10x what you're selling your program for. You cannot do that. The black and white rule, which makes it nice, is that if you've not sold it before, you cannot attach a value to it. If you have sold it before, you can say this previously sold for $1,000. I encourage you, instead of focusing on the value of these things, to have your bonuses be things that will help people get started and help them when they're stuck during the program. So, one of the things that I've done on my big program, people say, well, I don't know what I'm going to offer next, so I'll wait until I figure that out. So I have a bonus that helps them figure out what to offer next based on essentially kind of what we talked about already today. This is a way to convey immense value, address objections while also increasing the program value without having to just straight up lie or be a little fantastical about what the program is worth. Focus on quality Focus on making sure that what's included actually helps them get the result instead of numbers. Then, fake testimonials, that's probably obvious. You're not going to sit down and, pretend. But where this actually does go wrong is that people will include testimonials of people who did not go through this exact program, but they'll fail to mention that. You've got to mention that. They will include testimonials of people who either got something for free or otherwise had an incentive to make the testimonial. So if I have a testimonial that says I'm the world's greatest lawyer, but I fail to tell you that that testimonial is from my mom, that is a material piece of information that would change your buying decision if you knew it. So you want to be really clear in your testimonials if the person got a discount, if they were a beta tester, if they're related to you or a friend. The other piece of testimonials, the final piece, is that the testimonials can give an overall incorrect impression about the program. So if you sold 1,000 packages and only 3 people got results, and those 3 people already had super successful businesses, let's say, and you're a business coach, putting only the testimonials from them is a misleading picture of the overall program. So I encourage you, when you're thinking about using testimonials, which we know are highly effective, which is why we have to be highly accurate, that you focus on people who have a good quality of life following the program. So let's say you teach people how to close more sales in discovery calls on the phone. Instead of focusing on people who are like, I close 100% of my sales calls now, which is a very unlikely result for most of your students, you would focus on the fact that this person is really happy now that they never have to worry or dread a sales call being yet another bust. Okay, that's like a qualitative way to explain what life is like after your program. And that really improves the value and effectiveness of your testimonials too. And I hope you can see today, I'm really focused on the practicality. Where do people start with us? Where do we want them to go? Have it be easy. And oh, by the way, this also helps you make more sales while meeting your legal requirements. Yay. Okay. So if you are concerned about what to include on your sales page, stay tuned. I'm going to help you do that. But in short, we're just talking here. What are they getting? When do they get it? How does the process work? What kind of support will they receive? What is the price point? So add this to your to-do list if you don't have a sales page, or if you feel that you could use a revision with some of the legal requirements that we talked about. Next up, moving right along, is the order form. So obviously this is a place for your client to make the order. Your legal requirement here is it's got to be encrypted and secured. So again, this is why we use software as opposed to doing these things manually. In the modern day, I'm not seeing anyone do what I used to see, which is it would be kind of like a Google form where people put in credit card information. That is a hard no, hard no. The other thing though about your order form is the following. Before people pay, they have to see what they're agreeing to. So you're going to want to prominently link to your program terms or your client agreement on this order form. With modern day softwares, they'll also give you the option to check the box so you can look for that if your software has that. But you don't want to be in a situation where someone pays and then you send them an email and say, hey, sign the contract. Because maybe they wouldn't have paid had they seen what was in the contract. And you're going to have a problem on your hands if they do go to the payment processor and ask for their money back. On that note, I'm personally going through a very terrible refund experience right now with a big name in the industry. And so I encourage you that when people want out because of misrepresentations or what they feel are misrepresentations, it is important to let them out. You don't want those people in your programs. I'm not going to cause problems for this person, obviously, but their onboarding process was a nightmare. Okay, so don't be that person. Finally, okay, they've placed the order, you are excited, and the best practice here is to provide them the information about the next steps. Again, what's that support email that you're going to use? Are you going to manually give them access to something, send them a scheduling calendar, give them a automated membership login? These are some of the more practical steps, but it goes without saying, in order to keep the money, you have to actually deliver what you promised. All right. And then finally is the delivery. So I'm going to tell you just two quick things from a tech standpoint. I have a colleague that I do certification work with, and she had brain surgery this year, so things have been just all over the place. But in the midst of all of this was a rebrand happening, and we had to move off of the software where we were and move to something new and beautiful and user friendly. But there was this midpoint because we got stuck when she had the surgery. So we have been sending out customer guides, beautifully branded to match everything that they've seen so far, explaining that the new portal is not ready and linking out to a Google Drive. We have had no complaints. It has been perfectly fine. We've been really transparent about that. So if you are not going to be ready with a client portal, that is a really nice in between. Same thing with the sales page. We have sold from a Google Doc as our sales page because we were in flux in terms of getting the new pages built. So from that standpoint, going back to my initial comment that it doesn't have to be perfect and techy and amazing, Google Docs and Google Drive have been things I've used this very year with pretty sophisticated clients, and we still made sales and everything was just fine. So don't let that tech piece get in your way. But of course, the more seamless and automated the delivery, the happier your clients are going to be so they can get what they accessed when they want it. So, the recap to this point is that we talked about the program and the pricing that you're going to offer for Black Friday. We looked at the pages that you need to write and build. We addressed the legal requirements for each one. And so I think you'll have a to-do list in front of you of the items that it takes to actually make this a reality. And for those of you who already have programs made, you are just in the clear. Like you have such an advantage. And for those of you who don't, that is totally fine because you have time. Inside the Masterclass Action Guide, I put a chart. That is literally the chart that I use when I am getting ready to launch a new program. This is rinse and repeat. I have done it across like 4 or 5 different industries. It's a very predictable process that you can replicate every time and get amazing results. And so, just from that standpoint, it is a relief. This is not a 50-part process, 7 pieces, and you may already have some of them ready to go. Ideally, you want to focus on that opt-in and confirmation because that's going to allow you to start talking about what you have coming up over the next 4 or 5 weeks so that you have a nice audience that is paying attention to what you're doing, who will be very excited by special bonuses or special pricing when it comes time to launch on Black Friday. I have had great success with Black Friday sales over the years because people are both thinking about spending in general, they have often set aside money, and they're looking at tax write-offs and things that are going to help them get ready for the new year. When we talked about, selecting how much access they're going to have to you, it may be that you don't offer the access until the start of the year, by the way, until the holidays are clear and people are ready to go. I have done that successfully, which has also allowed me to get a little head start on creating that program material. You get to decide how this works and what works for you. Because at the end of the day, the business success is going to come down to the fact that you're getting out in the world and letting a sufficient number of people know that you exist. That can feel daunting because, everyone's trying to sell you a program about going viral and building massive audiences. But with a price point of 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, you can really move the financial needle without having to have a massive audience. If you've got 50 or 100 people that are really paying attention and engage, you can make that sale or two on Black Friday. I have done it myself with a small audience. All right. Now, on the topic of the legal piece, I told you we were going to come back to that initial slide, and I'm going to do that here in a second before I open it up for the Q&A. We talked about the cage, content, access, group dynamics, and experiences. And I told you that there's a way to think about this intuitively. Basically, with your content, we want to be sure that in your program agreement and in your welcome video in your program, that you're letting people know that just because they bought it doesn't mean they can use it for every purpose. Instead, usually it's going to be for their personal use and they cannot share it, they can't reteach it. Whether free or paid, in whole or part, this is the limited license that they're receiving. Most infringement, which is people using your content in unauthorized ways, is pretty innocent. And it's because we live in this sharing world where people feel like if it's out on the internet, it belongs to everybody. And that's actually not true. And so, as creators, we need to be having that conversation with our people. And so, that's what we're concerned about when it comes to the content that you're including. With access to you, we want to avoid basically energy vampires, people that are constantly rescheduling, they're hitting you up on 12 different channels, they want support at all hours. They are just in your grill all the time. And that is not how we keep happy clients, because happy clients help us avoid legal trouble, but also because it can be really demoralizing and energy draining for you. You are the expert here. You crafted the program that gives them sufficient access if necessary to get the promised result. And we don't want to be over delivering to the problem children because they often end up still going and requesting the chargeback or the refund, and you went above and beyond. There are people that you cannot make happy no matter what. So we want to be clear and upfront about the limitations on the access to you, and we want to hold those boundaries for a whole variety of reasons. When it comes to the group dynamics, we want to make sure that your clients, being that they're going to be interacting with each other and doing all the crazy things that humans do when they interact with each other, does not become your legal problem or your responsibility. We don't want you refereeing. We don't want you chasing people down who didn't fulfill commitments to, other people in your audience you sold to. And you want to make sure that you have the ability to oust someone from a group who is not keeping with the vibe without also having to give them all of their money back. So you will see when you get legal documents from me, it's not just the contract. We've got group rules. We have business policies about access because that's typically where the disputes arise. It's never like, you told me this program was 1,000 and you charged me 2,000. That's stuff that happens on the receipt. We're talking about those nitty-gritty details of things that come up often in coaching spaces that we want to anticipate in advance and lovingly figure out how we're going to handle it, even when we're mad or annoyed later. That is one of the beauties of understanding how things can go wrong in advance. And I think the legal cage is a really effective way of intuitively understanding that without having to play a lawyer on TV. Finally, for in-person experiences, this is one of our higher risk things because you've got people traveling, potential for delays, injuries, lost property, cancellations, illness, all of those things. So there is a whole lot of considerations that we have to make when we're doing in-person experiences. So I will leave that there for you. But I hope that helps you understand that you don't have to worry about everything and every unknown thing you can't even think of. Usually, this 4 item list is where most of your legal concerns are going to lie. Okay, the takeaways. I know that could potentially feel like a lot. You have the chart, you have the exact questions to ask yourself. You've got your list of to-dos in terms of what pages that you're going to need to create. The good news, though, I promise this is doable. Even if you can't get it out by Black Friday, you can see there's really no avoiding this list. If you are to sell online at any given point in time, you're going to need to be able to take people through this type of journey. So this works now, it works later. You can begin putting blocks of time on your calendar. I like to do 90 minutes to 2 hours so that you know you're going to have the time set aside to work through each of these steps. But I encourage you, whether you're doing it now or later, don't overthink the offer itself or your free gift. Every single thing that I have launched over the last 10 years, when I do it, I learn something, I adjust something. That's just how it is. It's great information. And luckily, we have the opportunity to get paid along the way while we're figuring all of that out. So the other thing is help is available for writing your copy. It's available for meeting your legal requirements. So I want to quickly show you that, and then we will get into the Q&A. This should just take about 3 minutes. You saw today on the screen Client Ready, but I didn't talk to you much about Practicoach. But this is my offer to you to get both your legal requirements handled in a really organized way, as well as super easy, effective, and high converting copy prompts that come from years of study. And I'm going to show you that here in a second, what that looks like. So inside of the program, you are going to find all the legal for those 7 steps that we just talked about. Practicoach is going to give you the copy for your pages that's based on what you do, who you help, and how you get them there. We didn't talk a lot about this today, but when you are selling, you do have additional legal requirements and legal benefits. So inside of Client Ready, I'm helping you go through in more detail, making sure that your content, your program names, your images, and your content are protected and also that you're allowed to use them, as well as what it means to have an LLC. The number one thing you have to be doing once you have your LLC that no one talks about it for it to actually work. What an LLC does is it separates your personal money from business problems. So this is a huge deal. You are also getting lawyer support in the way that I'm going to show you in a moment. All right. So you got a little glimpse of this earlier, but when you log in, you're going to see that here's what I just told you about. It'll tell you how you can use this information in these documents, an opportunity to be an affiliate for me. Instead of giving it away, you can share it while also getting paid, and how to get in touch with me for support needs. All very practical to help all of us have a more seamless experience. We're going to talk to you about those quick items to get you up and running, very practical things. Which documents do I need to sell? Where am I going to put them on my website? And we have some tips about those of you who have professional licenses and the checklist of things you need to do to be ready to sell that next offer. As mentioned, we're going to talk about your LLC. We have beautiful workbooks in here to help you think through all of those things so you don't have to figure anything out yourself. And we have your one-on-one coaching and your group coaching agreement right here, along with a short training on the crazy things that clients do that you want to be looking out for. We're going to be promoting your free and paid offers. So, of course, we're going to look at how to build your audience legally, as well as include all of those policy templates we talked about, including your privacy policy, terms and conditions, and disclaimer. And you're going to have all of the additional information that you need to make sure that your brand names and content and all of that are on point. Now, ordinarily, you have to be in my $1,200 program to get access to me. Ordinarily, this program does not include that. But let me go back to the presentation here. You will also be getting access to me through 1231 so that you can submit your work to me, you can address questions or concerns to me for your situation. And again, normally that is in a $1,200 program. So this is an important bonus because I know I'm asking you to do a lot of things. So the other part of this is that you're getting the Practicoach prompts. This is publicly available for the first time ever and only because actually they're going to be sold with a software program coming soon. Inside of Practicoach, you are going to get the questions that you need to answer to develop the copy for each of the 7 pages. And you're also going to get a sample format for the pages. Now, I encourage you when you're using this, actually, you could use AI if you like and ask it to interview you with all the information that it would need to complete these pages in high converting copy that matches your tone of voice. There are instructions in there for this. You will have all of the copy done probably in under an hour, even with edits. If you haven't used AI recently, the improvements are vast from even a year ago. So Practicoach includes this. You don't have to use AI, but it will greatly expedite things. And this is drawn from the highest converting pages that I have seen inside of my successful coach clients' businesses, as well as in my own business. I uploaded and trained all kinds of high converting data to accomplish this. And so you will have it and you can get all of that copy done very quickly. So just to recap, you are getting bonuses, which include access to me. You're getting the Practicoach layouts and prompts so that you can cross the copy part off your list. I'm also going to give you the ebook of Good Authority, which is short answers to commonly asked questions as you're building out your programs from a legal standpoint. Also, I am offering $100 off. That maybe will help you go through the steps more easily on your own. Carolyn, Kit puts the Kit address Yes, you need to have a street address, which I know you are calling in from a sailboat, so you're in a little different situation, but we need to have a physical address. I mentioned earlier in the presentation, people will say sunny Seattle or any town USA, that is illegal. And, by mailing it out to thousands of people, you are demonstrating the illegality to all of those people who are watching. And the mailing street address would be fine. All right. Jen, what about sales copy like results? You'll have more energy, you will feel more joy. Exactly. That is painting the picture of what happens on the other side. That isn't to say that including numbers or more specifics is per se illegal. That's not true. It's just that we have to be really careful, especially in weight loss settings and improving earnings settings, that we include a lot of proof and have data backing it up available, because the social science research has shown us that people show up to those types of conversations in a particularly vulnerable way, and they're not being super analytical or logical when they make those purchases. So they are much more susceptible to buying something that really is not going to work for their particular situation, because these are two areas where people are really often like desperate for help. So we want to make sure that we are taking into account the realities of our audience and who's buying from us. A lot of people who don't get results in programs, they don't make a peep. But the ones that do can get you into a lot of trouble and undermine your reputation. We want to create programs that create results and have sufficient support to create results, because eventually that work will stand alone, meaning you don't have to sell your presence or your face, which is great from a burnout standpoint, but also because we want that result to sell itself and take on a life of its own. So, again, very practical reasons for doing this that also meet your legal requirements. Amy, hi, I haven't seen your name in a long time. Great to know about the value statements. Yeah, everyone's faking this, and that is a no-no. Um, the Okay, in terms of having software that shows whether someone has accessed the program, this is a really nice to have, but not completely necessary. This typically comes up when you're offering a self-service or self-study type of program. Someone gets in, pokes around, gets the value, and as my friend Mark Mawhinney calls them, are refund artists. They either put in a fake or a prepaid gift card kind of number so that the future payments don't come out, and or they go and say, hey, I want a refund, I didn't access it, and you're able to show that in fact they did access it. So I use Kajabi. I have that ability to do that, and many other services do offer it. So if you're going to deliver the program in the Google Doc, as I mentioned, what's actually happening is that my system is still sending it out. So it's showing that they got the email, which does my part to deliver, and then my system will show that they opened the email. So that's what I have to rely on in those settings where I don't have the portal actually created. These are all about risk assessments, especially when selling certification programs. These are more sophisticated business owners, different buyer psychology. So I'm not as worried, and I'm comfortable making that risk assessment, doing it that way. Naveen, yes, you for signing up, you're on my list. I'll get you the replay here in about an hour. Amy, you're welcome. Tamika, thank you again for posting that. Amy, for registered agent, all right, so we're going to dive in a little bit to the LLC. A lot of people I know, even some of my best friends, are paying LegalZoom to set up their business LLC, and I encourage you not to do that for the following reason. LLC setup is actually pretty simple to do, and it essentially requires you to know your business name, your business address, and to identify a person who can accept a lawsuit for the business. Because while the business is its own legal person, it also is not a person. So most states do require you to have a registered agent. That's what that's called. And most states will allow you to do that either in name, so you're a private registered agent by name at your physical address, or to do it by position in the company. Like here in Nevada, you can list the president of the company at whatever that physical address is. If you don't have a physical address of your own, or you don't want to use your home address, there are many commercial registered agent services that you can use. They are inexpensive, like $30 a year, as low as. Sometimes they could be like $150 a year, but if it's more than that, I encourage you to keep digging. What these people will do is they maintain an office that is open. If a lawsuit gets served, they receive it and then they provide you copies and notify you. So, states want to be sure that people who are doing business in their states are also subject to the laws of their states and can be served in their states. And that's the way that we accomplish that. All right, Carolyn. Carolyn, you are asking how is Client Ready different from Little Black Legal Book, which is my highest level program. Little Black Legal Book does not include Practicoach. So we can have a separate conversation about that if you desire to have those prompts. And then I have a physical address and I have a registered agent in Texas. Am I paying twice for something here? Will my physical mailing address suffice? So the difference, like what we were talking about with the email and having a physical address, that is different than your registered agent. The registered agent does actually need to have a physical open office address with office hours so that they can be served during business hours. If you live in another state and get your LLC in Wyoming or Nevada, great question. Wyoming and Nevada are kind of on the forefront of bringing the benefits of a Delaware registration to smaller businesses that do not want to go through all of the hurdles. The truth of it is, this is more hassle than it is worth unless you are in a super high risk industry or you have millions and billions of dollars that you need to protect. The benefits of registering in these business-friendly states really pertains to like corporate takeover stuff. And so for most of us with single owner or small businesses, the benefits are really not worth it. And what you have to do is in the state where you're actually living, you have to register as a foreign company. Now, one of the benefits of Nevada and Wyoming is no one gets to know who owns the business, but to be registered as a foreign entity in the state where you're doing business, your state may require you to put who the owner is. So it kind of defeats the purpose. Whenever you're making decisions like this, you want to think about substance over form. Am I really doing business here? Then I really need to be registered in the state where I'm doing business. And there are many shrewd legal brains and legislative brains who have thought through all of these things. And so, trying to just hide by registering in another state does not eliminate. And I don't mean to pass judgment on that. I just mean that it's not just as simple as registering somewhere else. Ruthie, hi Ruthie. Notice you use Kajabi. Would recommend as yeah. So Kajabi is something that everyone has an opinion on Kajabi. I am loving Kajabi. The number one reason I love Kajabi is that it is very easy for people to reset their passwords, do all of those things inside their portal. It's very seamless in terms of, automating delivery. Also, it has everything we talked about. You can build a website on it if you want. I don't recommend for a reason I'll tell you in a second. You can build your opt-in, your forms, your confirmation pages, your automated email sequences, your sales pages, your order forms, your confirmation, and your delivery. It's all in there. It has a wide variety of design templates that you can purchase on Etsy and elsewhere. So I like that component of it. So you don't have to go out and custom code or do that if budget is a limitation. The only thing I would recommend though, I do like to have my website separate because I want to own those links. Same thing with the sales pages. I do like to have a version of the sales page that is not on Kajabi, but instead on my website, which I use Showit, which was strictly a choice based on the woman I bought the design from, built it for Showit. Because I want the search engine optimization kind of juice and just ownership, whereas the pages that are created in a site like Kajabi, an all-in-one, it's going to kind of use their links on the back end. So I have enjoyed Kajabi. Unfortunately, their best deals are at Black Friday. So if you're going to choose Kajabi, you won't be able to get those. That initial month is not going to be at its best deal, but definitely keep an eye out. They offer amazing promotions. The other reason I chose Kajabi is that many, many, many course creators put their courses there, which means many of my students already have accounts, which means that they have a really seamless customer service experience in the Kajabi app on their phone. So they can come and go out of all of the programs they own, and it will pick up right where they left off, like in the videos and stuff. Whereas whereas if you're using it in the web browser, typically the videos do reload. So Kajabi, I personally love it. I'm never moving, and they just made some incredible updates and upgrades to refine some of the clunkier points. All right, Amy says, would I have to pay taxes if I fund my trust or LLC? So, um, there's kind of a few pieces here, but essentially there are many different types of taxes. And almost no business structure or trust structure minimizes your obligation to pay those taxes. Now, you may be saying, wait a second, there are these United States corporations that have all of their money abroad because they are trying to not be taxed in the United States. There is an open legal question about whether that is allowed. And that's like whether or not it's an enforcement priority of the IRS. So, my suggestion is that you create trusts and LLCs to be able to separate which source of your assets are responsible for business problems, which source of assets are available for your taxes, but that you are not using these entities to try to bypass the taxes. So, Ruthie, I'm lost in all the options for the various pages. Yes, it can definitely be a lot. For those of you who are considering doing this on an all-in-one tech platform, your wish list for this is going to be that it has CRM capabilities, that's the email handling, that it has page building capabilities, and that it has payment capabilities. So those are, what we want in an all-in-one. All right, I think we are 13 minutes early. So, unless anyone has any other questions for me, I will release you. I hope that you are leaving today, even if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, you know the scope of what you're looking at, whether it's now or in the future that you're going to launch. And someone asked, to deliver documents via Google Drive, do you need to set up a separate new email for the business in Gmail? I like to do that because you can buy a domain name for, let's say, 10 bucks. You can attach it to Gmail, and for $8 to $12 a month, you can have people emailing you at, support@goodauthority.co. But you get the Google experience, which I find like really intuitive and easy, and a lot of people have it. The one downside to delivering in Google Drive is that depending on how you give the share link, people may need to have their own Google Drive account. It is free, but some people don't necessarily love that. So I definitely let them know in advance that they're going to be interacting in the Google environment. So to answer your question directly, no, you don't have to do that, but I encourage you to, as much as possible, do everything under your business name because that's who owns your content. That's where we want to be focusing all of your protections is under that name. And it just is a layer of professionalism as well. And Amy says the difference between a trust and an LLC. An LLC is an operating business enterprise, and a trust is a bucket that holds property that you don't own that will be owned someday by other people when you die. And so a trust is an estate planning vehicle. It's static, it's not an operating business, and an LLC is an operating business. There are quacks on the internet who will tell you otherwise. Do not buy from them. Carrie says if we have Little Black Legal Book. Yeah, so Carrie, if you have Little Black Legal Book, you have everything that we talked about today except for Practicoach. And if you, Carrie, I think you purchased long ago, so you will not have access to the Journey to 1 million. No, that's not true. It's in the membership section of your Little Black Legal Book. So if you need help accessing that, let me know. We moved over to a new membership site. Carolyn, should we be clear on the sales page that the portal is in Drive? I think you should because it is an unexpected customer experience. So, for people who they are concerned about that, which I understand, it could be, not everyone is super techie or understanding of how to do that. So I think it's a good idea to let them know that. Amy, thank you. So nice to meet you too. I appreciate you spending the morning with me. Sabrina, hi. What about working with entrepreneurs as a bookkeeping coach? So this really is the same. Sabrina, maybe you can be more specific exactly what you're looking for. But I'll give you an idea. And for those of you who cannot stay on, thank you again for coming. Don't feel like you have to sit here with us and go through the whole Q&A if you don't feel like you need that. But for a bookkeeping coach, I know that a lot of entrepreneurs have receipts everywhere. They may or may not be using accounting software. They may not exactly be sure how to account because they're combining a lot of business and personal money until things get up and running. All of those things would be amazing starting points to help them feel that they can conquer this and get on top of it so that tax time doesn't make them cry, which it used to actually do that for me. Let's see, what legal things should I look at? I'll be supplying the software. Oh, perfect. Okay. So very similar. The difference being that as a software provider, you're going to want to make sure that you have things like encryption, safety standards, all of that, especially if they're hooking up to banks. You might be white labeling software. I don't know. And so you would want to identify in your privacy policy. Okay. Yeah. So you'd want to identify in your privacy policy that there is a third party provider and you would link out to their privacy policy. And you'll want to make sure that those people are using industry best practices when it comes to maintaining and utilizing client data. So, okay, yeah, QuickBooks, you have no worries, but you would want to let people know that that's the case. And then, much like everything else we talked about, we want to be really clear with people about what we can help them achieve and what the benefits of working with you are. As a bookkeeping coach, maybe it is a side benefit that once they get their books in order, they can make better and more profitable business decisions. I don't know if that's the purpose of your program or not, or if it's more focused on just teaching them how to do their own uh, books. But those are things that, just like the other types of promises that we talked about today, you want to make sure that they're realistic and that you have the program structured in such a way that they're actually going to get the result from it to the extent possible. I mean, there are a lot of factors outside of our control, which is another reason why we want to be careful about the promises we make because we just don't know where people are coming from when they sign up. I'll give you a quick story about that. Years ago, actually, Tamika, you were there for this experience, which was I ran a live version of Little Black Legal Book where people could come on a group and we would walk through all of the legal requirements and tips and tricks. And I thought, let me open this up with a little icebreaker, a softball question. And I said, who here is a coach? And only like two or three people raised their hands. So I thought that is very strange because this is very directed at coaches. So I learned from that experience that, people identify as different things and they saw something else in this that they needed. But my point is that you may not be dealing with exactly who you intended to deal with. And so you want to be extra super clear about what you're offering. All right, everyone, please let me know. I'll hang on here another minute. Oh, Sharon says, CRM setup, I can be an affiliate for the platform I recommend, or I can have my own agency. I'm leaning towards affiliate because of all the new laws. What would you recommend? So I am seeing a lot of people do the white labeling of a particular software, and I wonder if it's the one I'm thinking of. But um, if it's the particular software I'm thinking of, I could actually go either way about it. My fear with you being the agency is what your policy around people who stop paying is going to be and the recovery of data. I know a lot of them don't charge you extra as the agency to keep an account alive. But you start having all of those more difficult questions of a software provider when really all you're trying to do is encourage people to use a particular platform that you're an expert at and maybe can one click import things for them while making an amount of money. Now, I know with the affiliate, I think you may be limited, whereas on the agency, you can charge whatever you desire. But I probably lean toward affiliate with some sort of monthly service package so that you can earn whatever it is that you want to earn and include the software fee with some sort of offboarding that allows the person to take over direct payment. So let me know if that's, yeah, I think that's the best way to go. Unless you're really, no, I think that's the way that I would lean. All right, seeing nothing further. Thank you all. I'm going to go and get this replay ready to get mailed out, and I will talk to you all soon. This deal will last for 1 week. So if you have questions, hit reply to any of the emails, and I'm very happy to talk to you about your particular situation. Have a great day, everybody. Put that stuff on your calendar. Let's get your offer out in the world. The people need you.